breaks the shadow of the weary heart. Truth cuts the dark like a flaming dart. Voices rising strong to lift the call. This is the time we give it all.
Welcome to Patriots Prayer Network. I'm Lynn Scott Hagerman, where faith meets truth, fear has no place, and courage anchored in Christ leads the conversation. I'm so glad you're here. I'm a survivor of child trafficking and medical experimentation that occurred underground at a US-based university medical center tied to declassified government MK Ultra programs. I am the voice they tried to silence, and I am silent no more. Praise God. Today, I stand as an international award-winning human resource consultant, a marathoner, and a weightlifter, living proof that restoration is possible in mind, body, and spirit. My call is clear and unwavering. I'm to expose the darkness, elevate survivors and whistleblowers, reveal the truth, restore lives, and protect our little children. This broadcast airs Tuesday through Friday and Sundays at 2:00 p.m. Central Time across all broadcast platforms with the Patriots Prayer Network. Please be sure to visit qgrit.org and sign up for our newsletter. That's the aftercare plan that God created once the little ones are rescued from above ground and below ground trafficking, as well as to help adults with any type of trauma. Also, please be sure to visit liveyoungerwithlynn.com, where I'm an independent distributor of LifeWave that won the Stem Cell Innovator of the Year award. It is time to get healthy and stay healthy because we have work to do for such a time as this. Now let's continue bringing everything into the light and presence of God. Today, I welcome back Dr. Jerome Corsi. He is a renowned author, political analyst, and election integrity expert with a Harvard degree and over 30 best-selling books. He joins us today, folks, for an uncensored deep dive into the shadows of power. He's fresh off exposing voter roll manipulations and global corruption in his latest podcast, and he is here to unpack explosive truths on the Epstein files, voter fraud schemes that are targeting 2026, and the hidden Ukraine money trails tied to elite players. I am so happy to have you here today to share with us everything that you're going to share.
Oh, great to be with you, Lynn. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. So what topic would you like to dive into first?
Well, let's go right into Epstein. Let's get into the Epstein files.
Okay. So when it comes to the Epstein files, we're seeing a lot of reveals. We're seeing a lot of exposure coming out. What have you been reading in the files that stands out to you the most?
Well, I think the most startling thing is how many people are involved in it and how high up. And I think you're seeing that now even Steve Bannon is involved in it. And these are shocking announcements and shocking pronouncements. And then the activities that they're in, which are finally getting to be exposed, with including the human sacrificing of babies and the consuming of babies, the torture, the sex extremes, and the snuff movies that they do, and all the other kinds of activities, which are fundamentally Luciferian, I think are a shock to people who have not been around or known that this, in fact, is what this world is all about. And so, therefore, I find these revelations to be, first of all, I'm glad they're coming out, but second, I know how completely shocking they're going to be to most people. And I'm trying to explain to people that, we've known about this for a long time. And the Luciferianism, I point to a book I worked on to took me about 7 years to get Craig Lund to write a novel called Silicon Satan. And you can see that up on Amazon right now. and he was in the Silicon Satan rule. You know, he got out of it. He managed to escape, but you know, it was not easy for him to escape. And the novel tells chapter and verse what the life was about. It's not pretty. It's hard to read. It's ugly, but it's true. And that's why people, I think, have to be exposed to it. And I'm glad to see this coming out now that people are getting exposed to it.
Yes, I agree. Anytime I have shared my testimony, part of what I do, of course, Jerome, is talk about the little ones. And whenever I was little, being trafficked and at the university underground in the tunnels, there was extensive child sacrifices, including with babies. There was extensive cannibalism, Luciferian worship. It's what they do. And they have been so successful being hidden underground for so long and in the shadows, and exposure is what's going to start ending all of this, because they're like cockroaches. They can't come into the light and reveal what they've been doing, because society will not have any part of this.
Well, and to the average person, it's pretty astounding that this is going on. You know, that in other words, the idea of killing and consuming babies is pretty frightening in and of itself. And this is this is the Pizzagate and the pedophilia, which was ridiculed when Julian Assange revealed it in his Podesta emails. Now that was in 2020. You know, the fact is that those code words are used, that the pedophilia and the sexual abuses on the elite, you know, not just Hollywood, not just Silicon Valley, but the wealthy elite, as we're finding out. This is shocking, but yet, and hidden, and involves some very prominent people. You know, there's now 300 people were named by Christy. I guess it was Christy Noem, or one of the, I guess, Department of Homeland Security released it over the weekend. 300 people who were involved, and you know, the names are really the top wealthy elite in the world, and it looks like even King Charles was involved, not just Prince Andrew. So therefore, the royal family is going to take a huge hit on this.
What do you think are going to be the consequences to for example, the royal family and other people named? What do you see the next steps going to be now that this is all starting to be revealed?
Well, I think, first of all, the American public are just absorbing this now. We're just getting the information in. And I think Craig Lund's book is finally starting to sell. And people are finally starting to read it and understand what this world's all about. And the book's not for the faint of heart. You know, I mean, the sex starts out in it right away, and sex with children starts out in it right away in the novel. And that's part of the whole, it's dark because it really denies God. These people are godless, they are secular, they are Luciferian. They are devoted to Satan as the ruler of this sphere. And so that, you know, Prince of Lies, they are induced in all of these crazy ideas. I mean, the Democratic Party, which I think has become a completely satanic party, it's gotten to be completely Luciferian. You know, they want to kill babies, even if their baby is born and the mother doesn't want it. They want to still have an abortion. Well, that's infanticide.
Yes, it is.
You know, they seem to have no compunction whatsoever about any kind of idea that they advance. So they advance carbon, you know, climate change. Well, it's all a lie. Electric vehicles, they don't work. Boys can be girls and girls can be girl. They can have sex change operations. Well, this is just sexual mutilation.
Yes, that's right.
And it's insanity. And I wrote a book on that called "The Truth About Neo-Marxism, Neo-Marxism, Cultural Maoism, and Anarchy." And they're in the anarchy stage right now. Black Lives Matter and Antifa roaming the streets. Who wants to be ruled in this environment? Democratic Party is supporting, murderers and criminals of all kinds. And how can you justify this? And if this is the platform on which they want to run the American people in the streets, supporting illegal immigrants who are criminally here, well, that's not sympathetic. It's not going to get them votes in the midterms. But yet they seem to think this is the right way they want to go, and they can't be dissuaded. Hold on. Been a very busy day here today all around.
I knew you said you've had a very busy day, and I'm grateful for the time that you have for us today, because I know that you have a lot going on that you're taking care of right now.
It's been just very, very busy. And, the thing is that I decided I was going to suspend my podcast for a while. I mean, I'm censored to the point where I've spoken out of these issues for 20 some years, and a lot of things that I've exposed over the years, including MK Ultra. And I've done podcasts on MK Ultra and interviewed various victims of MK Ultra, and know exactly what it was. And it was a horrifying and very confusing experience for anyone who was in it.
Yes.
But when you survived it, and the same with Craig Lund when he came out of the Luciferianism, that they try to destroy you. First thing they try to do is destroy you. So you have to survive that. And the death cults, the worshiping of death, the hating of life. Only God can give life. And so Luciferians hate life. They want to extinguish it. They're responsible for the depopulation schemes, for the whole efforts to kill mass numbers of people. They don't care about if we have a nuclear war. I mean, these things are desirable. During the Biden administration, we were days away from nuclear war when we were sending in these long-range missiles that could hit Russia. And, Putin redefined Russia's nuclear rules of engagement to say that if they were our weapons, fired by our troops and guided by our guidance systems, then we were at war with Russia. And Biden didn't care. Neither did France or Germany or, the EU countries. They were willing to go to nuclear war with Putin, which was madness. Well, I intervened in that and got in touch with Steven Seagal and basically was saying, this is not what Trump is going to do. And Trump and Putin have been trying to come to an agreement, but Zelensky continues to perpetuate the war. The only way to stop the war is to quit funding Zelensky. And, again, the EU, which is completely bankrupt, and, the EU is overrun now by Muslims, which they can't control. And, the people don't understand there's probably 250 million young women who have been sexually mutilated by Islam.
That's right. That's in their Sharia law. And I don't think, Jerome, that the people in the United States have any idea what that third world culture has brought into this nation.
I'm sure they don't. And again, it's sold as diversity, and we need to be, the nation where we accept from other countries, and the spirit of the Statue of Liberty poem written in the base of the Statue of Liberty, which is by no means part of any of American legislative or constitutional history. We do not pledge to accept the downtrodden from all over the world or the criminals. or the ones who can't make it, and especially the ones who intend to destroy us.
Exactly. And they speak it openly here in the United States that they want destruction, that they want to kill us. And yet we continue to see nothing being done about this, no one's stopping it. It's criminal.
It's yes, it's worse than criminal. It's the only way. It's dark. It's evil. When I wrote the book on the neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy, what I really realized was that Marxism failed. Workers of the world did not unite against capitalism. Labor unions were formed, and we prospered economically under capitalism. So that those who hated America, who hated prosperity, who hated God, and including the Frankfurt School, which is a bunch of Jews that we allowed to come from Germany to escape being put to the concentration camps. People like Marcuse and others settled largely in Hollywood and began writing anti-American books. And so Marcuse combined Freud into Marx and said that the way to true liberation was through unbridled sex, uninhibited sex. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll took over in the 60s and 70s. Marcuse was a key figure, but it was completely dark and completely, guys like Adorno, who was also part of the Frankfurt School, wrote books in which their heroes were Marquis de Sade. So they lionized Marquis de Sade, which is just sadomasochistic sex of the worst kind. And so therefore, they were basically embracing and worshiping very brutal sex, very punishing, not rewarding, and not life-giving. And finally, with Mao, the Cultural Revolution, they learned how to attack the culture of capitalism. Gramsci and the Italian crazy nutcase Italian who was imprisoned after World War I and wrote these notebooks, which are largely babble, attacking the culture of capitalism. And so finally, they embraced postmodernism. People like Baudrillard, the French philosopher, who basically said that there is no reality. He was a nihilist. There's nothing. It's all just word games and constructs, and we make up all the ideas. There isn't any God. It's just a construct that we invent to, explain our insignificance. So they become nihilistic, and that therefore they deny that there's any objective value or objective good. So anything anybody believes, they have a right to believe because it's all just perception. So if somebody perceives that they're born a girl, but they're really a man, that has to be that's not schizophrenia. That's just, you have to accept their reality. And it's insanity because biologically, you're not going to make a female into a male or a male into a female.
That's right. That's right. Whenever I sit here and I continue myself to read about the Epstein files and what we're being exposed to, the transhumanism aspect has been very eye-opening with how deep they were going into that.
Right. Well, the ultimate goal, and I intend to write a third book on this, the truth about humanism and perpetual life extension, artificial intelligence, is they think that that most human beings are worthless, and there will be a superhuman being, a Nietzsche-like transformation of human beings into our combining with machines and becoming super intelligent. on living forever through our, even if we were a computer code. And it's just insanity.
Yes, it is.
These are people who, should legitimately be seeing psychiatrists, and yet they're establishing the culture that the captivates younger generations who are now no longer being taught fundamental values of natural right or natural law. They're not being taught American history or civics, or the principles of why our Constitution was formed the way it is formed, why it has worked when others have failed. They don't understand the freedoms that we have. And they, worldwide, the censorship is enormous right now.
Yes, we've been seeing that too, now that you speak of that, on X. I think it's fascinating, Jerome. The past, I would say, week, X has been throttling people back, not posting information, and there are cries going out far and wide on what X is doing. And I find it fascinating that it's happened when the Epstein dump comes, whenever we're finding out information in the Epstein dump that they don't want us to know about, and the fact that we have elections coming up in 2026, and all of a sudden, one of the major platforms we all have to communicate on isn't letting us communicate.
Well, it's the censorship is enormous right now, and the Democrat lying to each other. They'll try to move to the center, but I don't think they'll succeed. I think the American people are seeing through it. If you have Mandami in New York City, and he's now playing the call to prayer 5 times a day is being heard in the streets of New York. That's we're the American people are saying this is insanity, and don't know, they don't have any clue what the radical Islam is all about. And why are the people of Iran trying so desperately to overthrow these mullahs? It's the same as with anyone who's ever lived under communism. Yet the lie is very seductive and very persuasive. And the idea that you want social justice and you want to fight for everybody's rights, and it sounds, all the way it's sold sounds so good that it's seductive. But yet, in fact, the reality is, should these people win, our freedoms would be gone immediately. This is what's happening in Europe, in the UK, and in Germany and other countries where they're monitoring everything you post on social media and arresting you if they don't like what you say.
Do you see that? I think it's important that people understand the radical Islam, since you brought that up. Give us some insight on what that means, what they practice, and why how deeply it's infiltrated here in the United States already.
Well, first of all, I always thought that the appeal of Islam is that it justifies men being violent towards women.
That's right.
That it justifies beating women, that sexually mutilating women. What they do is they cut the clitoris off of a girl so she can never have an orgasm.
Yes, they do.
And that's one of the worst crimes you can think of committing.
Yes, it is.
It's they'll and there's no recourse for women. If there's an affair, the man has an affair, the woman could be killed if she had nothing to do with it. And there's no justice for women in Islam. There's no education. It's isolation and oppression. And you talk openly about what really goes on, I know Frank Gaffney has probably done as well as anyone to really get the word out about what Islam truly is.
Yes, he has.
But, Islam is not a religion of peace, not at the extreme, not a radical Islam. It's not liberation. It's exactly the opposite. And so therefore, those who get drawn into Islam find themselves captivated by it in a way that it's very hard to escape. Of the amount of lesbianism that ends up being in Islam, and again, there's no sexual outlet for women. And get married at 12, 13 years old or 6.
I know. Yeah,
You
we
know,
call that pedophilia here.
yeah. And so around the time of Ayatollah Khomeini, and David Horowitz was onto this, that radical Islam combined with Marxism, and because they were both anti-American. And the attempt has been to undermine the family and undermine marriage, undermine the raising of children. And so therefore, even the destruction of the middle class, with the inflation that Biden had, made it impossible for families to economically own a home and raise a family, because you simply couldn't afford it. And so therefore, the birth rate has gone down, especially among the younger generations, for strictly economic reasons. They can't afford to have children, and that's not accidental. This has all been calculated, and I think increasingly people are becoming aware of it, but yet, as you know, going back into the 1950s, the seeds of this were within the American government, within our own CIA.
That's right.
And this whole, the whole attempt to exploit drugs and sex for control purposes, which was the heart of the MK Ultra program, and the trying to communicate with people and influence them through communications psychologically, which was a mind control game.
Yes, it was.
Induced by drugs and sex, with children being the victims. And people, again, don't have a clue what went on in MK Ultra. The families that sold their children into MK Ultra willingly for money. And the horrors that inflicted. I mean, today, the Democratic Party is largely a criminal party.
Yes, they are. They're a criminal enterprise, and they have a whole criminal support system behind them, Jerome. We have the injustice system, to where if they're ever caught, they're released. The bad guys get released. The good guys, as you said earlier, get absolutely destroyed. They have their own cover in every system and institution throughout the United States. They thrive because there's no justice and no accountability.
Well, and again, you can't, it can't long persist because it self-destroys. And it's nihilism. It cannot produce a utopia. It cannot produce any good. It can only destroy. And it can create victims. And that's what happens to people who are drawn into it. Now, usually in the MK Ultra program, the children who were drawn into it, it was their parents who brought them into it. And it was not anything that the children had any conscious choice to make. They're just
That was the case with me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was typical. Your parents were supportive of it, and they were controlled and paid. And the children were brought into situations where they were psychologically manipulated, controlled by people who impressed upon the children that they could speak to them psychologically, or impression, create communication with them even though they weren't present,
Yes.
and then induce the children to engage in behaviors that the children would never probably didn't understand.
That's right. You don't. It's physical and mental torture. Is from a child's standpoint. I always speak up for the little ones. You have no idea what's going on. It's just nonstop physical and mental torture, and they do a lot of that to get compliance, because children would never do the things that they're forced to do otherwise.
No, never. Would never occur to a child.
No, it's not even on their radar. So, you think back to the Epstein files, the grooming that happened, the solicitation, and I know they had babies and little toddlers and things too. We're hearing about the baby breeding farms.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be more that you're going to hear about, and the baby human sacrifice, especially babies, and eating, cooking and eating babies, which is to most people, it sounds insane. Who would ever think? Just even talking about it, you sound nuts. Except that it happens.
Yes, it does. Yes,
And,
it does.
The sexual orgies and the drugs, and then the heightening of the sexual orgies by torture on stage and killing, snuff exhibitions, captivate people, and are very seductive of their nature. But if you don't engage in these, you won't advance within those societies. You won't get the rewards of position and money and influence. And you really do sell yourself to the devil. You really do sign a contract.
Yes, you do. And it amazes me what people are willing to do for money and power. Their life on this earth is so short. And yet there seems to be, it truly, the love of money is the root of evil. And these people are so in love with money and power to do this to little children, the innocents, and each other is beyond the pale.
Well, I'm trying to expose that God's Five Stones has done a lot, and I'm kind of getting ready to ramp it up to another level. But I'm pausing it for a while and trying to get over all the things I've gone through. They tried to put me in prison when I wouldn't take a plea deal over the Mueller investigation.
Yes.
And that ruined my 32-year marriage. And so they try to get you financially to be broken. I mean, the whole sequence of episodes that you go through are very frightening, very difficult. But yet again, this is the nature of the manipulation and the nature of anybody who resists them. You're targeted immediately to try to break you, or if they can't break you, to silence you. And I've been at it for over 20 years and exposed a lot in the writing I've done, which I see now unfolding in people finally becoming aware of things that I've been writing about for decades.
What are you seeing people finally becoming aware of?
When or what?
What? Yeah.
Well, I think that people are finally becoming aware of the nature of evil and its reality and its pervasiveness. You see it in Hitler and killing of the Jews and all the torture and everything that went on with concentration camps. But you say, well, that's just Germans and Jews and Hitler. It couldn't happen here. well, then we begin to realize it could happen anywhere. And that, our elite, Wall Street, George H.W. Bush's father, Prescott Bush, was one of the members of, the elite funding Hitler on Wall Street in the 1930s, Brown Brothers Harriman. And so our desire, we would have fought with Hitler had it not been for Roosevelt and maybe some others, but the whole idea that Hitler was evil was certainly not perceived during the 1930s until after, the invasion of Poland in 1938. So 1933, when Hitler became chancellor, he was popular worldwide and funded worldwide by the elite, by the Henry Fords and the American elite that were more than happy to allow him into the inner brotherhood. And so it's been going on for a long time. And again, people are just beginning to, I think, be aware of it, and to, as it captivates the entire Democratic Party, so that anybody who is not, Obama is not trying to pull the Democratic Party more to the center, and he's just being ridiculed left and right. I mean, he's an intelligence and creation, if there ever was one. That, Obama, I think, was the beginning of I wrote the book about Abomination.
Yes.
In 2008, and exposed that he was, not Christian. He was raised Muslim, and he was educated by Frank Marshall Davis to be a communist, and had a history that looks like a CIA legend, where none of his documents validate out. You can't prove anything about him, and so therefore, he was raised and groomed to destroy America. And the American
That
people.
itself is shocking too. More shocking revelations that, I remember when he was elected, he seemed just wildly popular with the people, which tells me how asleep people were in the United States of America.
Well, no one wanted to face the reality of understanding the evil. I mean, Obama came on hip hop and slick and, charming, and he was groomed to appeal, and hit the American public as an unknown, but with a scripted reality of fiction that was sold to the American people to be, a story of racial and cultural diversity. And he was going to then heal all the wounds of, grievances of races. I wrote at that time that we would end up a more racially divided nation, a weaker nation, economically ruined, with the dollar being destroyed, which has all happened.
Yes, it has. You're spot on with every point.
And, I fought very hard to warn people that this was a lie, and they were believing the lie. And yet the lie was packaged in a way that was very seductive. It always is. I mean, Satan wouldn't succeed at all if he didn't have a good lie.
The father of lies.
Mm-hmm. And they're very believable to people who want to feel that they should be in power, that we should live forever, that we should have a perfect life here and not have disease or poverty or hatred. That we should be able to enjoy utopia on earth. Well, that's just not the way this place is constructed. And fundamentally, they expect to be able to live forever. They don't want to accept that there's an end to this for everybody. Nobody gets out of here alive. and they don't want to accept that.
How deep, Jerome, do you think this evil is from, what Obama started, what was happening even before then, our government agencies, political systems, judicial systems? I mean, how deep and wide does this corruption go in the United States?
Well, it's very deep. And you also had intelligence agents and others involved in it, and so therefore it was, at the highest levels. You had families involved at the presidential level in pedophilia, which was hidden, and that comes out in Podesta's emails.
Yes.
You have Obama, who is, I think now admittedly bisexual, clearly has homosexual tendencies. Larry Sinclair proved that at the time Abomination was written. And Hillary, who again is bisexual, and so again, these people lied about who they were to make it seem like they had perfect marriages, when in fact, nothing could be further from the truth. They didn't have perfect marriages. Far from it. And they were all aware of what was going on. Now Barbara Bush may not have approved of it, or, but again, the references, even in the Bush family, which are highly suspect. And all through the CIA, the homosexual nature of many of the intelligence agencies, including, the Nazis with the SS and the SA. And again, these are things that people just don't see.
Do you think they're starting to see them more now?
Beginning, I think the Epstein revelations are opening a lot of eyes. And I think as people read what Craig Lund and others write, and it gets affirmed that these things happen and are real, it becomes harder and harder to deny or ignore. And so that at least pleases me, in that I think we're finally getting a level of truth which had not come out before now. And that's very important.
Well, you've been waiting a long time for this, because you've been speaking about this, like you said, I mean, for over 20 years, waiting for we the people to catch up. I'm hopeful that more people will wake up and realize what's happening, because until then, the lies are going to continue being believed. People are going to continue to sleepwalk through what's happening in the United States. And I'm afraid of how severely the enemy will be able to harm us.
Well, I think we're fortunate to have Donald Trump in office, and Donald Trump, I think, his faith was deepened by the assassination attempts that he survived. I think you saw especially the one in Butler, Pennsylvania, as the hand of God sparing his life so he could be president. And there's no reason he should have turned his head exactly at the right second to have escaped that shot, which most certainly would have killed him. And we've been graced to have a period of time where we can begin to perceive and right these problems. I think the Democratic Party, in its extremism, is making the American public aware of just how evil it is. You can't really praise these people out in the streets of Minneapolis against ICE.
It's ludicrous. I sit there and I watch what the Democrat Party does at their last Democrat convention. I call it Baal worship. They put an abortion ban in front, and they were killing babies during their convention. That's Baal sacrifice front and center. That I'm not sure how many people actually realized what was going on there. But I was watching Epstein's niece do an interview on Sean Atwood's show, and she was talking about how they are Luciferian Baal worshipers, and it goes generations through Epstein's family and those that they were associated with. And it's very, very real. They serve a God, and it is not our God. And when they say God, it's another way that they can fool people, because they don't mean the Lord God Almighty of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Father of the Lord Jesus Christ. That's not the God they're talking about.
Right. And again, most people don't understand that. It's tough for people to understand that. And it's tough to accept that. The idea is so preposterous. I mean, it's not that they don't believe, they believe in evil. And
Yes, they do.
That's all, and they profess evil, which is hard to imagine. I mean, as a child having gone through MK Ultra, which you did, at some point or other, you have to say, why did my parents do this to me?
Yes.
And why would these people intend to have put me through what I went through?
Yes, because it was intentional, and they enjoyed it. The people who harmed me and all the other little children that I saw, they thoroughly enjoyed it. They are not like us. This brings them pleasure. They love harming. They love killing. They love torturing. It's something that, as you said, the bulk of Americans and worldwide just cannot wrap their minds around this level of evil. I remain hopeful, because whenever I was younger, it was all below ground, or it was above ground, hidden in the shadows. It wasn't, you couldn't see it so in your face. They're putting it in our face now, Jerome. You see it on the performers and the entertainers. They're doing Baal worship and demonic dances in public. The Olympics, now the Epstein files. I mean, they're no longer hiding this. They're bringing it full out into the open.
But it took a lot to get it out there.
Yes.
Thomas Massey and others have really pushed the envelope to get it out there. And
Yes.
people who Pam Bondi and the others who I'm disappointed in, and Kash Patel, have not cleaned things up and have not gone courageously after the evil. Everything was done to hide the Epstein release possible.
Yes, it was. What's your take on that? What is happening with Cash and Bondi?
Well, I think there's always great resistance in these agencies to say you can't do this. I mean, it could take down the English monarchy. People realize what King Charles was involved with. You find King Charles involved with torture and torturing children, whatever was involved. And the King of England, I mean, Prince Andrew's already been disgraced. But again, that's only for the underaged women. When the full extent of what they were involved in is known, it's hard to know how the monarchy will survive in Great Britain. And that's the bedrock of the disciplinarian system that allows for the censorship and the inroad of Islam to the extent it is in Great Britain. So therefore, people who are seeking freedom are finding out there is no freedom in Great Britain. For saying something, you can be imprisoned.
And they are.
They are.
Yes, they are. Which I know, watching the time because I know how valuable your time is. I appreciate your time. You will also want to talk about the voter rolls a bit before we close out today. And before you do, let me do a couple shout outs. JJR, God bless you. Your support means a lot to me, and I have Holy Spirit goosebumps head to toe. I follow you on X. Encourage everyone to follow JJR. Also, Outlaw Dogs, Meg, I see you. C Spiker, Cassis Rumble. God bless y'all for joining. So, Jerome, voter rolls to the election coming up.
The Democrats have put into the, it's just not entirely Democrats, but I mean, the states have, on God's Five Stones, we show this. Andrew Paquette found it a couple of years ago. A lawyer in Ohio called me with paper Andrew Paquette had written, finding these algorithms, secret codes in the New York State Board of Election voter registration file that permits the creation of modified duplicate records or just by the millions of fake records that yet get legitimate state IDs and can be used, hidden in the database, to be used in mail-in ballot schemes. And then we started finding these in other states. And I publicized that very extensively prior to the 2004 election. And the extent to which we publicized it meant that the algorithms were not used in the presidential election 2004. The battleground states all reported on the night of election for George W. Bush. And had we not emphasized the algorithm, we were prepared to catch them in 2004. Well, now President Trump, having won in 2004 with Peter Tickton, his attorney, they've been friends since they attended military school together, 15 or 16 years old. And I've worked with Peter Tickton to expose the algorithms and to show people how the schemes are done. And so now we're getting the SAVE Act going through. I think it has a chance of passing the Senate, I believe. In fact, I would not be surprised to see the SAVE Act pass.
Praise God.
But it won't be enough. I mean, Trump will still have to come out with an executive order, and they're setting the basis for that China tried to influence our elections and that Prime Minister of Italy tried to influence our elections. Now that's out there. That was released last few days. And we're seeing, the huge election violations in states that won't turn over their voter rolls to the Department of Justice, Wisconsin, Virginia, Georgia and Arizona are being extensively examined. I think very shortly we'll see indictments come out.
Oh, that would be great. I was seeing this morning, I think on X, Harmeet, is she suing like 25 states or something because they won't clean up their voter rolls? And we could all say them by name who they are because it's where the corruption's the worst and where the Dems win when they don't win.
Right. The Democrats can't win an election if they can't cheat.
That's right.
And
but the consequences of them winning is horrific now. I mean, we've crossed a line now with their cheating and their stealing. They're destroying the United States of America from within.
Yeah, I mean, I'm convinced Obama opened the border with Honduras in 2014, 2015, in order to get these unaccompanied minors to come into the United States, capture them for sex trade and organ harvesting.
Yes.
So that we could do the Sinaloa drug cartel could bring in cocaine and China could bring in fentanyl, and that a lot of it was money laundered through the banks, wired into Act Blue. And Act Blue, the executives, and Sean Taylor's proven this, would buy $1 million house and take out, $50 million in mortgage loans fraudulently. That was just a way to funnel the money from the border illegal activity to the Democrats.
That's right.
It had nothing to do with anything except money laundering. I have reports from the Department of Justice where TD Bank, Toronto Dominion, for about 6 years did not do any money launder reporting. None at all. And that was when the bank had transacted approximately 10 or 12 trillion dollars worth of business that was not scrutinized for illegal activity.
That's shocking. And any consequences to that?
No consequences.
And that's the difficult part in all this, is the complete lack of justice, the complete lack of consequences. And so the enemy gets worse and worse and worse with what they devise and carry out, because they haven't been brought to justice yet.
Well, I mean, the Soros plan was to take over the school boards, to take over the city councils, take over the judgeships, to take over the prosecutors, and so therefore take over the justice system, defund the police, lionize the criminals as the victims, and this whole lie they perpetuated. So now you've got all kinds of judges who oppose justice and are nothing but political hacks sitting on the bench with robes.
Do you see anything happening, Jerome, to turn this around to, from your perspective? And because I know that you have access to a lot of people and places and things that we don't. Do you see things that we don't that give you hope that things are going to get better?
Well, I've always had, I mean, I don't think evil wins in the end. In the end, God wins.
Amen.
God always wins. And so, you know, Satan has read the book too, and he knows he loses. But it's to take as many souls as he can. And so therefore, the evil doesn't stop. And so evil has to be constantly fought. So I think that we're at a period now where it's more intense. But I think, again, and it certainly seems like end days. But again, I think we're at a point where things are turning around, and I'm very hopeful things can continue to turn around. And with that, I'm going to have to say goodbye because I've got another one coming up right away.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for being here. And until next time, everybody, this is the Lynn Scott Hagerman Show, where truth is rising, and so are we.
Light breaks the shadow of the weary heart. Truth cuts the dark like a flaming dart. Voices rising strong.